large emphasis in the coming year on infrastructure investments with the neighborhood infrastructure bond coming online. How we're going to staff that, how we're going to plan for and deliver those projects. We've got a number of special emphasis neighborhood sidewalks through the CDBG 108 loan program. That's going to be a big new amenity coming into our neighborhoods. And we all know in the course of the coming months, we'll be doing a renovation of the new public safety campus building out on the Floor campus. So a lot of big projects coming this year. We'll also make targeted investments in additional personnel to support council's priority in our maintenance needs and continue to focus on providing great day-to-day service. Purpose of the meeting today is to receive your feedback and direction as we develop the budget. So if there's something in the course of the presentation from the main departments, if you all have a question on or you'd like to elaborate on or give us a comment and feedback, it will be helpful to us as we put together the planning assumptions for the FY23 budget. As we've done in years past, we try to listen. I think with the council retreat that we had this year, we got a lot of great feedback from council. We've adopted our priorities for FY23 already. And what we'll do at the next meeting is we'll start to bring a series of planning assumptions for you all to tell us, yep, absolutely on that, or no, we'd like you to tweak this or change that, or you've missed something. So that'll be coming in 2 weeks. We've already started, obviously, the budget process at the department level a number of weeks ago. Had an opportunity to meet, I think, at least twice with most of our department leads on their priorities and their needs to continue to provide great service here in the city of Greenville. And now it's an opportunity for them to get up and share firsthand and answer any questions that you may have. So with that, we're going to jump right in. And the first operating department up is Chief Thompson and the police department.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Good to be with you today and share some highlights from last year and talk to you about a few things we have going on moving forward this year. Next slide. Of course, our mission is to collaborate with our community to prevent crime, promote safety, enhance quality of life. During this past year, we've done that by investing in our NET team, our neighborhood engagement team, our TRV, traffic response vehicle, as well as some other projects we have going on. And we're introducing some new projects this year that's going to help us moving forward in 2022, 2023. As you recall, one of the big things we did last year was change the alarm ordinance. The alarm ordinance has been very beneficial. And to point out a few highlights of that, we have 476 previous unregistered locations that have registered their alarms, which helps in the responses. And we've also if you recall, this went into effect in September of 21, and just in that short period of time, we reduced the alarm calls by 6%. And we're still seeing that steadily come down for false alarms. We had a good amount of, we're actually proud to say we had reductions in both property crimes and in violent crimes. But in shoplifting, we saw a huge decrease, and that's especially working with our smaller stores like QT and Spinks. They have a lot of shopliftings, but they're down 13.5%. One of the things we continue to monitor, and when we look back to 2019, for instance, our emergency call response time total was about 10.5 minutes. And as you can see over time, over the years, we have really brought that down. And then last year was 8.41 minutes. So, and we're continuing to focus on that. We broke this down into increments from taking the call in dispatch, the delays it receives in going out over the radio, and then the call response time for the officers. So we're breaking that down to see where we can gain time and get there quicker, especially focused on emergency responses. On this slide, you'll see kind of what I led with, that we were able to tick down just a little bit in property crimes and in violent crimes, which is very important. Violent crimes are one of our focuses, and as you'll see coming up with our Project Safe Neighborhoods project that we're working with our state and federal and community coming up this year, will really focus on the violent crimes. Something interesting in doing our research for our Project Safe Neighborhoods grant, I wanted you to see this, that our population density is, when we compare to other cities in this area, and then the mayor's brought this up about comparing to other cities. When we compare to other cities in this area, our population density, because of our 29 square miles, we are second on the list. Now, if you look at overall population, we're next to last, but we're next to the top because of our density. So we are very dense in population. And that's only taking into consideration our population that lives here in Greenville. That's not taking into consideration the people that are here during the day, which swells beyond 130,000 a day. As you know, last year we introduced our neighborhood engagement team. They are really focused in the neighborhoods. We're looking forward on growing that some more. We've already identified communities in which we want to put officers, but they are doing a great job. I've already gotten great feedback from our neighborhood communities, and they love those officers being there and building those relationships. And these are the first 6 areas that we recognized that we wanted to get our officers in, and we already have them in 4 of those areas, and are working hard, and we'll be, as we get people out of training, we'll be filling those other slots and getting them in those areas. Last year, we grew our ALPRs, our automatic license plate reading units, to 25. They have been very beneficial. As you can see from this, we recovered, for instance, 87 stolen vehicles. And so what we did is just put a $2,000 per vehicle if that was the case. But just during the past month, we have recovered 2 vehicles that were both $50,000 each. One was a Corvette, one was a Lexus. So as you see, that's $100,000 in 2 vehicles. We're really getting back property that's valued at much more than $174,000. But I just wanted to highlight that we are able to get a lot of stolen merchandise back. You can also see the number of firearms recovered. We were able to catch a person that was on NCIC. He was wanted from Georgia. He was from murder. And our ALPR picked up on him that he was wanted, and we actually stopped him before he even really got in the city of Greenville to do whatever he was here for. So we'd like to, grow that program, add some more. They're very beneficial and keep our community safe. And especially if we can get these people before they're able to come and get embedded in our community and start any criminal activity that they have planned. Our TRV has been a really good boost to the department, and we've got a lot of positive feedback from our community, people traveling through the city and traveling every day on our city surface streets. They have helped a lot of people. We have 2 officers that work on that vehicle that rotate in and out and have just provided a lot. They, especially during, if you remember, the snowstorm and ice storm, the TRV was out and pulled a lot of vehicles out of ditches and got them going down the road, and it was highly beneficial. And they've responded to a number of collisions. Just recently, when we were working on Augusta, we sent the TRV up to help direct traffic and get traffic moving, make sure people were aware of what they were pulling into. And it's just a good vehicle and very highly visible to our motoring public. Something moving forward this year that we've applied for is some state-funded grants for SROs. We've been working with Greenville County Schools, and there is some funding put out. The governor is really behind this. He wants to get SROs, school resource officers. Yeah. Yeah. So we have school resource officers in our high schools and in our middle schools, but we don't have them in elementary. In elementary schools, we rotate officers in between to give coverage. But this would give us 3 more SROs. That would put one at the Sullivan Center, one at West Greenville School, and one at Sterling School. The good thing about this grant is it provides 100% for all the equipment. That's the vehicle, the vest, any equipment that the officer carries, and also their salary. The only thing it wouldn't cover is our officers work an 86-hour biweekly schedule. This covers 80 hours. So the city would just be paying for 6 hours per officer, which is per biweekly. So that's a great deal for us. So we've applied for 3 positions in collaboration with the school system. So we're thankful. We're in our 2 high schools and in all of our middle schools. Okay. We have officers that rotate between the elementaries, and so that will be moving forward. So these are the first 3 schools we identified with the school system, and that's based on calls and issues that they have at the school. These are the first 3 we want to put them in, but we will, if we get these grants, we're going to apply for more grants through this program and hopefully
the county pays for the county schools. Okay, yes. So we're in all middle and high schools have been for a while,
and we have a good partnership with the county schools. So they basically pay for half of our SROs and we pay for half. So every other one, the school system's paying for, and every other one the city's paying for. But on this, the grant would pay for basically 100% of these 3.
And I want to add that we were an early adopter on this. I mean, when other municipalities and even the county weren't sure whether the officers could be in the schools, we jumped in there and have had SRO and predecessor policies long ago, probably going back 20 years now, and have built it ever since. But we've always been in a strong position on that, the city schools.
Chief, we have them, it's an assigned one in all middle and all high.
Yes, ma'am.
And they're there throughout the school day.
Absolutely.
Elementaries, it's rotating, so you might not have one on deck at all times, but certainly the middle school and the high schools have full coverage.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay.
And both of our high schools now have, because of the population of the high school, and of course the age of the kids, it is, and what they're dealing with, we have 2 SROs in both of those schools to make sure they're covered. And of course, they have a lot more after-school events and things like that they cover those also.
Right, so they cover after-school sports. It's the same SRO assigned.
Absolutely.
Right.
What kids get circumstances?
No, it's on a case by case. So if the school handles it, we stay out of it. We try to stay out of it as much, but when it becomes a point where it's disrupting the school so much, that's when we become involved. And most of the time they're brought in and there's a counseling with a juvenile detective and maybe referral to services and never even makes it to the family court, to the juvenile system. We try to refer. I have 3 juvenile detectives and that's all they deal with. And so they're really good at meeting with the families, meeting with the student or individual involved and working with them to try to get them on a path that keeps them out of the system is our, we work with a counseling service that we refer a lot to through our Gravity program. So, that's our goal, is to keep them out of that. Right, absolutely. I agree with you.
And then to be clear, Chief, charter schools are not included in that count.
They are not. Legacy Charter has now come in the city, but it does have a county SRO because they had that SRO prior to coming in the city, and they have some contractual agreement with them. We also received a federal grant. This is in collaboration with our forensics division for Greenville County and the Greenville County Sheriff's Office. This was about a $260,000 grant. It's a piece of equipment that will help us in our fight against violent crimes. It compares the ballistics of shell casings found if you're on a crime scene, or guns that we have recovered. They can test fire them and compare the shell casings or the bullets, the rounds, to see if they are matched up with any crime. So any gun we get will run through this system. Any bullet casings or bullets we get will run through this system. And as we get matches in, they will match up and link our guns that are used in violent crimes together. It's a really good thing. All of the upstate will be bringing their weapons here. Currently, we have to take everything to Columbia to SLED. The upstate, Spartanburg, Anderson, they were all supporting this too. They will all be bringing their guns here because, as you know, a lot of criminals, they're in Anderson, in Greenville, in Spartanburg. It's the same people committing violent crimes. So this will help link those and hopefully help us stop a lot of the violent crimes. Our Project Safe Neighborhood, I know several of our council members have heard about this and been at meetings where we discussed this with our community. We received a grant it's going to help us build a partnership with the community. They're going to be meeting with us. This is with our state and federal partners in law enforcement, and the focus is violent crimes. And the reason that's so important is this is something everyone can get behind. Every neighborhood, every community, all of us, all of law enforcement get behind this because no one wants violent crimes in their communities. And so this is a great project. It's a good way for us to build relationships with our community and build trust. And this is really a community-driven project. As you look at the circles, the reason the community circle is so big is that they drive this. They don't want violent crimes in their neighborhoods. And so they work with us and then some of our nonprofits that offer support to keep individuals from being reincarcerated, recidivism, keep it down. And so we will be working with a lot of our partners on this. We've already been meeting and we're way ahead of the curve on this, but we'll be introducing this 100% to the community probably coming up in June or July and have some big, large community meetings about our Project Safe Neighborhoods project. So that's our gang resistance and violence. It's teaching kids about gangs and violence, and it's intervention. It's an intervention program. And so that's something we run. Yvonne Davis is in charge of that for us. And we have a counselor that's on our team with that. And so we're able to refer kids over to her and get counseling, and not just with the kids, because what we see is it goes deeper than the kids. She counsels with the families too. So that's Dr. Caroline Caldwell Richmond. Been a good partner to us for several years, and really just, she takes a deep dive into each individual and their family. And really, we've seen some good, the kids getting turned around coming out of that program. It's been very positive. Recruiting, we've done a good job in recruiting. As you know, we've stayed full throughout the past couple of years, which has been hard for a lot of law enforcement agencies. But thanks to your support and especially some of the raises that were given out, it's been very steady here. The support we receive from our community. The officers are doing a great job, but we continue to recruit so that we have one ready. I just had an officer retire a couple of weeks ago, Tommy Chatto's been here 25 years. We're seeing a lot of that. The officers are getting their 25. They're not staying longer. They get their 25 in. They're going out. If you come in now, you have to work 28 to retire those. So it's 3 more years they have to work. But we have them lined up. So as soon as one leaves, we have another one in the queue ready to go. And I want to mention this in case you know of anybody that wants to come and learn more about the police department or apply with us. We did a workshop last year and it was very successful. This year, we're also bringing in the fire department and our communications team. And so we are having a hiring workshop. It's going to be on the 18th from 1 to 5 at the convention center. They get to come out, meet with police officers from all different divisions, talk to them. We go over the application process. We have the PAT test. That's our physical agility test set up so that they can practice that and run that, see what that's all about. And we will be doing that, like I said, on the 18th. So if you know of anybody, please send them our way. We're also putting out neighborhood signs in a lot of the neighborhoods. And we've paid for some advertising throughout Greenville to help advertise this and get some good recruits in. And so, just wrapping up, this is touched on many of the things that I've already talked about: our gang reduction and violence intervention targeting youth. That's our Gravity program, and talking about our kickoff in June or July. But everything's going good. The officers are doing a great job. We've got good teamwork, and I'm proud of them. And I'll take any questions you have.
There was a persistent problem for a long time, just filling positions and everything. And it's great that we've caught up and have the positions filled. And you mentioned it in passing, but you went through it too fast. So I just want to underline it. This is a very unusual situation in most cities in this country right now, locally as well, and regionally and all across the country, to have the positions actually filled. And we stand as a definite exception. And the other thing that I think just needs underlining, across this country, not just in New York and Chicago and Los Angeles, but across this country in mid-sized cities in the Carolinas and Georgia, there's been a precipitous increase in violent crime. It is real. In fact, there's almost hard to find exceptions to the rule, and we stand almost alone as a big exception for that. And it's a great tribute to the police department and perhaps other things going on around here that perhaps we can't even begin to describe. It'd be a nice discussion to have. But public safety is the most important thing. And as one group from Georgia on an inner city delegation said a couple of years ago, they're a mid-sized city in Georgia, they said, gee, you come to Greenville and you're focused on livability, quality of life, parks and neighborhoods and all these great things. They can't get to those topics. The reason they can't get to those topics, they're completely consumed by the issue of violent crime in their city. And this is a mainstay city in Georgia. I mean, this is not something to be just, passed over. It's tremendous information, particularly after 2020. And Chief, you and I have talked about this. It's kind of a head scratcher to some degree, but the numbers don't lie. They're real. And that's something that every resident of the city needs to hear and needs to understand.
It's a good point, Mr. Mayor. I've got a couple comments and a question if I can. Thanks for the report. So one item is the comparison, the population density crime comparison. Thank you. I think that's good. I like it. I trust everybody likes that perspective it offers. The only thing I would say to the city manager and the chief is if we could expand that, I'd love to see maybe some other, what I'll call regional benchmark in peer cities to go along with this largely South Carolina based set. I think that'd be great. So that's a comment for you. Second comment I would make, do you know off the top of your head, without wanting to put you on the spot, you mentioned we've got 2 high schools in the city limits, a collection of middle schools. Do you know how many elementary we have?
10, I believe.
Okay. So I would just say, in recognition of what we're doing right now with SROs rotating and with this good news about the placement of 3, I'd love to see us, whether it be an aspirational target or more than that, right? Like a very precise commitment that we would make within the city of Greenville to try to find a way over the shortest term possible to place SROs in each of the elementary schools. That's on the short list of frequently received requests and concerns I get from parents who probably don't know and fully appreciate the presence in the middle school and high school, but at the same time, if their child is in elementary school, they want that same sense of security and protection there. So I would simply say, let's keep it up, but I think that'd be a good commitment and target for us to make to the best of our ability. My question is the citations. So good traffic thing, I noticed about a 25% reduction in traffic citations. Do you have a sense as to what's driving the downturn on ticket issuance?
Yes, so there's a couple things there. Part of it was COVID. It slowed the courts down. So the officers, they only can write a certain number of tickets per court session. The court session's being spread out more. We tried to approach it in a way to let's stop them, let's warn them if you can, and see if we can have an impact by still doing enforcement, but not writing tickets and backing up the court system, because all we would have had is thousands of tickets sitting there. Judge would have had just piles of tickets that he's unable to get to because of the justice had set down the ruling about their court sessions, how many they can have and when they can start back. So we're back going full on court now, and we're starting to see the number of tickets going back up because they're getting back in their regular court sessions. But it's a couple things that have driven that.
Yeah, makes sense. Thanks, Chief.
Yes, sir.
So I have a question on that same slide. That's a great question. Well, that's exactly what I was thinking. Collisions on roadways increased 16%, but this is calendar year 21 compared to calendar year 20. So we
That's
just have
correct.
more cars on the road.
That's right. So
Post-COVID.
20, if you recall, we took a dive.
Right. Just want to
And
make sure I was
so
looking at, makes
Even though
sense.
it's 16% up, it's not up past where it was previously.
Compared to say 2019
Correct.
would be a better year. Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
thanks.
Chief, just a couple comments. I want to talk a little bit about traffic enforcement, which, by the way, Mayor, echoing what you said, how great that we're going to be talking about traffic enforcement and not violent crimes. So without public safety, really nothing else works. So thank you for your work and your team's work to make sure that our community and neighbors feel safe. Can you talk a little, the biggest complaint I hear from people is the speed at which cars go. Can you just talk a little, which is great. So the biggest complaint's not violent crime, it's fast cars. So you almost are like, well, I'll take it. Would you just talk a little bit about y'all's efforts with traffic enforcement?
Absolutely. So we are data driven and complaint driven. So we get a complaint, whether it's from you or one of our other council members, the mayor, a citizen. We go out and take a look at those. We have a traffic team that does that. And when I say take a look at it, an officer might go out, run a little radar, see what's going on. And then we put out what's called a stealth stat unit, which checks the number of cars that go by, the speeds. It does it by time of day, day of week. And we usually run that study for 7 days. Mm-hmm. And that helps us then, if there is a problem, narrow down where the problem is. Because sometimes it's an hour in the morning or an hour when school's letting out or the hour when 5 o'clock hour hits and everybody's going home.
Yeah.
But it helps us drill down on where is the problem, if there is a problem.
Yeah.
And so then we'll send out officers to monitor that and issue citations, as necessary. And so we do have a team that does that. We have equipment that monitors and gives us better information, and they stay busy. We have a hot 10 or 15 list that's what they're rotating through normally when they're not hitting these specific areas. But they have specific areas. One that came up recently was Academy at Markley, or Academy Speed near Markley. It was a week or two ago. So officers have been out there checking it. But during the times that the complaint came in, there's actually doesn't appear to be there's too much traffic to have speeding. Every once in a while you'll get a car weaving in and out of traffic and they'll stop them for aggressive type driving. But the speed has not been a factor on that.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure we all can do a round robin of where they hear the complaints, but a lot of them center around, busy roads during school hours when the kids are going to and fro. So thanks for your work.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
The last question I want to ask is about the complaint that I received about people sleeping downtown more regularly than have been before. So I know I think we assigned someone to do that, information, et cetera. So I'm just trying to find out, how is that working? Do we need another person, or is there a report on that?
Right. So we've been partnering with the Greenville Homeless Alliance, and they hired a gentleman named Chris Rubio as a peer counselor. He has been great to work with. When we get a complaint about someone, we go check on them and see what services we can help get them. We get Chris involved. He's able to speak with them at a level a little different than an officer. They always think we're just there to lock them up. And as you know, it's just not against the law to be homeless. Sometimes they need help or need to be in the right direction. We do facilitate getting them to somewhere if they need a ride to the doctor or to a counselor or to something. We facilitate that and help that out. But no, they have been good to work with, and Chris has done an outstanding job. But some people don't want our help,
Oh, no.
and it's hard to. You want to help them, but they don't want help. They're fine the way they are. So.
Well, in going to the Alliance meetings, I attend them as much as I can, but it seems that they have, the homeless have a new reoccurring theme. They move their camps all of the time around the county, the city, and will set them up, and many people just refuse to even they find them a place to stay. They refuse, and a lot of them are veterans that we've looked at over the period, and that's getting better with Upstate Laureate Solutions is helping with that. But I don't know what we can do about the campsites and moving around to certain neighborhoods, because they're right on, some of them are right on the edge of the city, particularly up near Rutherford and Buncombe. In that particular area, they'll go to another place, then they'll come right back. Then another group is near Lawrence Road. So is there some way we can get some more information about that, or what we can do in order to keep those camps from not only coming to the city, but from other things? I'm sure our staff, when they're looking at cleaning up vacant lots, I'm sure that they find lots of stuff.
And you're exactly right. And we go out and try to do outreach to them and try to get, GHA and our other partners involved, Upstate Warrior Solution. If it's a veteran, they're great to come in and get them and help them if they can. And you're right, they do move around. I think what happens is once we know where they are and we start checking on them regular, they don't want to be bothered, so they move, and then we'll eventually get a complaint or find them somewhere else, and then you're over there checking on them again. Mm-hmm. And so it is some of the same people we're running to moving around.
And we work with mental health, because there was a man last winter, and I hope he's not doing this again, but it was 26 degrees, and my husband tried, the man from Rescue Mission, everybody tried to get that man to come inside. They had a bed for him, etc., but he refused. He stayed. He wanted to sleep outdoors in a zip-up bed. So, and I know that's a mental health issue. And so we've got to, if we can do a little bit more mental health outreach, that would be great.
And we've got a good partner in Department of Mental Health now. They have 4 counselors here in Greenville. It's called CCR. It's Community Crisis Response. And they have even, they have somebody on duty all the time. We've even had to call them out in the middle of the night. If they try to handle things over the phone, but if it's a situation they need to come in, they will get up and get in their car and drive in. They did that the other morning at 3 a.m. We were trying to talk to somebody and help them. And so that's a good program. And I think Department of Mental Health, we're kind of one of the first counties they're doing that in. And I think you're going to see that program expand.
And I hope we can share that information with our neighborhood leaders, because oftentimes they're the ones that are called instead of calling the police. I don't know why they would call them.
Well, we always answer.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right.
Chief, real quick question, because Councilmember Fleming's comment made me think of it. Where are we on percent trained for CRT training of our force? Crisis response training.
Oh, crisis response. Yes. We have a good amount of officers trained. I would say we are over 2/3, and we send officers regularly to that training. So
I mean, we've been talking about this for a number of years, and I just think it's so important that they get that training. And I recognize they have to roll out of service to get that training, but having that training makes them able to respond to cases that that it's just essential that they have that. So I hope the city manager will support you.
Oh, absolutely. And we send 5 to 10 every training that's around here. I think Greer hosted the last one. we'll probably host it coming up, but it moves around
Yeah.
and we send as many as we can every single time.
Okay.
And I do hope that, since the mayor was talking about that we are ahead of the system, I hope that we can get to the point that we can either carry a mental health psychologist that we, at some point, we need to hire, because there are a lot of events, negative criminal events that happen at homes, do not need a police officer. They need a mental health counselor. They need someone there to talk some of the people that, because I know several people were shot and killed, who had called the police and they were just mentally disturbed, but they were bipolar and they wouldn't stop and they took the police officer's gun. So we hope we'll get to that particular point, that we need some trained psychologists to go with our police to save them, as well as the people that they work with. That's something we need to think about. That's a key issue if we want to bring safety to our force.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. We want to take the opportunity for a few minutes to talk about the fire department and what we've done in 2022 and look forward in 2023. One of the things we always look at is response and looking at our data. And the data tells us what our calls for service and needs are from our community. We've seen an increase in calls, about 15% in the last year. A lot of that is COVID related. A lot of the calls for service our citizens need us to help respond to medical calls. We've seen a big increase, about 15, like I said, in the last year. We think those numbers will kind of start coming back down. The first quarter of this year, we've seen a little bit of an increase in call volume compared to last year. But again, it's kind of starting leveling back out on the second quarter of this time. Response time data, we always look at, as calls increase, how do we respond to calls and need for service? As you can see, even though we've seen a 15% increase in call volume, our response times are staying about the same, which is what we're looking for, to make sure when people call, we get there in adequate time to respond for their needs. The next slide talks about our response time data and breaks it down. We look at everything and how we can improve. When we look at a response model, we look at everything we do. We're always looking at the data on national statistics and data to break it down to say how fast we process our calls through our 911 dispatch centers, our turnout time, how quickly we can get out of the station, and then our travel time from the time that we leave the station to get to those calls. Again, we've seen a better response time last year on medical calls, about a minute and a half almost, where we improved on our response times. We were about 10:50 in 2020, and we're down to about 9:12 in 2021. So that as calls have gone up, we've still been able to increase our response time to those calls we needed for service. We benchmark this. We look at this quarterly. We look at it monthly, and we're always looking for improvement where we can improve upon to respond to these calls as needed for service.
Hey, Chief, when I think about these kind of situations, though, and observe them in real time, our emergency folks get there first, and then a little bit later, county EMS comes. Is that
Correct.
always the sequence, or, I mean, I've never quite been sure how that coordinates.
Typically, we're about a 4-minute response. We're on scene about 4 minutes prior to EMS, depending where EMS availability is at the time. Of course, we've seen a lot of that. They've been stretched thin with the last year with COVID, with the hospitals being strained, so we've seen that as well. But typically, we're on scene most time before EMS is available, just based on where EMS is coming from.
And the reason I bring that up, because I live in a neighborhood with an overwhelming number of people who've moved into the city from outside the city, as well as out of town. And that comes up a lot in real surprise, because if you live in the city of Greenville, the EMS call that you make, it's an emergency. Indeed, it's always something scary and terrible. The first one of the scene is Greenville Fire Department. EMS comes later. And that surprises people. It kind of, it's a good surprise, but it's kind of a surprise. And I hear that all the time. And that's just, it's a great thing about living in the city of Greenville.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, it helps a lot of people stay alive, because at Brockwood, where I senior citizens are, some of them are in crisis mode, and by the time the ambulance gets there, the fire department has them under control.
It's
And
really is.
we're a non-transport agency, but we're certified through DHEC. We have 80 plus EMTs, 10 paramedics this time. And that's things that we can respond. We work with our med control and our EMS systems in the hospital to always improve what we can do in our response to what citizens need.
I think it's interesting. I mean, notwithstanding what you said about COVID, your lead slide showed a 50 to 60% increase in 2019. Oh, so I get COVID probably ratcheted up a bunch of medical and EMS related calls, but well before that, you guys were working overtime in that category.
Yes, sir. As we become licensed agency, we've seen that demand increase for our calls for medical use. Again, we are constantly tracking our data. Strategic focus areas as we look towards that. Ensuring the Department's emergency service delivery system exceeds national standards. We just talked about that. We're constantly looking at data. We're constantly looking at the needs of our citizens. We just completed our strategic plan last year and looking for that community input, both internal and external, to see what the needs of our community are, to make sure we're providing the service they need us to provide to our taxpayers. Our facilities, maintenance, and equipment. Again, we looked in the last 2 years, have done work and renovations to our West End station and Pelham Road fire stations, West End and Pleasantburg. We've done work this past year to Station 7 North Main with some roof work, and we're actually doing an assessment right now of Pelham Road Station of needs that need to be done on that station as well. So all these things we're constantly looking at, along with our modeling of where we're going to relocate our current stations to as we start planning the next 3 to 5 years with that. One of the things we're really excited about right now is expanding our involvement in our career centers. We're partnering right now with Greenville Chamber and with Goodwill on actually having a paid internship program for our high school seniors that are part of our career centers, where they'll come into our fire department and they'll get paid, I think, up to 50 hours of work to actually do an internship program. Along with that, we're starting our second summer program this summer. We did it last year, as you're aware, and with help from the city manager's office, we're looking at, can we possibly pay these summer students to actually be there during the summer, especially trying to reach the citizens in our community that maybe have to work during the summer that couldn't be there. So because they've got to work a part-time job. We're really targeting our juniors and seniors in high school. Those applications went out last week. We're already getting applicants coming in to us currently, and that program is going to start in June. So it's coming up rapidly. Along with that, with our Explorer programs and our summer programs, we've started an initiative this past year with work from HR and the manager's office that we've gone back to a Firefighter One program, which means we're now hiring our citizens that live in our area that may not have training or have the opportunities to actually certify them as firefighters. We're actually testing this week 16 individuals, 4 positions to come in with us to actually start this summer where we actually run on recruit schools again. So that's another initiative we've changed in the last 9 years where we're just hiring certified personnel to now looking at how do we train our personnel. Again, we see the same demands across the country that public safety is. In the state of South Carolina, I think the last data was 700 firefighters short in the state. So we've got to do things differently. How do we create opportunities? It's one of the things we look towards. And again, it goes right into preparing the department for the future. We've got to look at what our needs are, and we have to be looking to change things when we can to make the difference.
That's great.
Automatic aid, we've been working with this, the city manager's office and legal. We have sent our first draft contract to both Parker Fire Districts and Wade Hampton to look at automatic aid, which sends the closest responses to citizens in need, both into the city and then into their areas. We're now working with Pelham Batesville, Bowling Springs, Greer, and Taylor's fire departments for responses we have along our interstates and bordering areas to also be able to respond when needed to help the citizens. We've been working, as you know, with the donation from the airport and the agreement of a crash truck, the ARF truck we received, of training our personnel to a higher level of standards to respond to crashes or airport events. We're also working with Donaldson Center right now. Our personnel are going weekly to Donaldson Center and training with their personnel who do this on a regular basis to make sure we can, if the need arises, that we have personnel trained to deal with it. The relocation of stations, we're talking about that, and we'll have future things coming up through the manager's office and through council in the future about looking where Stone Avenue is going to be relocated to, looking at the possibility of an airport station, and along with the Southeast station. We are modeling that currently. We're looking at property that we currently own as a city and other properties that are available through economic development to where we could possibly put these stations to have the greatest impact to our citizens. We're currently working on that at this time and modeling that. We're working with the city manager's office in budget about replacing our drill tower and doing some work with our drill tower. Our current facility was built in 1970 and is in some great need. Council helped us a couple years ago to add a classroom to our building and indoor plumbing, which we joked about because some of our council members took part of that, the training we had down there. So that's been an accomplishment. We're moving forward with that as well.
Oh, yeah, that building been here longer than I have. It's got to go.
Again, with our paramedic programs and service for our paramedics, we've trained 3 additional paramedics this year, which is a 1,000-hour program. That's a year of training. We're looking at putting 4 more personnel through paramedic school in the coming year through those processes. In order to do that, allows us to change us from being what we call a basic life support agency, BLS, to look at how do we possibly become ALS so we can do more advanced techniques and help our citizens when need be in the future. Along with helping not just locally in our area, but in the state, we talk about our personnel and how they participate on teams throughout our state. We house our hazmat team for the upstate of South Carolina, along with Greenville County ERT and our assets. And we respond not just to the city of Greenville, but in our county to hazardous material calls. We just participated last week in a drill at one of the elementary schools outside the city limits that we were evaluated by SLED and by the state for our responses to help those type of situations. We actually did a second evaluation with our state USAR team, which is response to urban search and rescue, collapse instance. We did another evaluation with that as well. And also members of our upstate search and rescue team went out in the last 2 weeks to some of the tornadoes that happened across the upstate, and we do assessments. So we'll go out and look at where tornadoes have come through, the damage assessments to help the state with that process so that we participate in it. Again, we work with incident management teams to major incidents in the state, and then the statewide response teams as well when disasters happen. So we're a part of a lot of different teams with the city. Again, real quickly, our short-range plans and long-range plans, strategic considerations. Replacing Stone Avenue Station becomes a priority of council and both city manager's office we're working towards now. Purchase of property for the Southeastern Station, looking at these modeling to determine the best location for the citizens. SCBA replacement. We have $1 million liability for SCBAs. We actually just wrote a grant, and we'll know something hopefully this summer for replacing SCBAs. Our air packs our firefighters wear. They're end of life, so looking to try how we can find additional funding for that. We have our ISO inspection coming up for our class 1 will be in the next year. At this point, that reaccreditation is coming in. Along with that, we also have we're accredited agency, as you know, and the next 2 years looking at that process as well through accreditation for reaccreditation. We've talked about the others. We're also working with the city manager's office in traffic engineering and public works for the preemption systems of traffic to look at a response data and how our apparatus can get to calls quicker with traffic being able to move more smoothly and not being stopped at red lights, where traffic can actually move. Again, the stations become the long-range plan because everything we do is just not about one station. It's the domino effect that we look long-term, the next 3 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years of what that does to our response plan as the city grows. Accreditation, we're working right now with the county to look at a countywide RMS, records management system for fire, to actually work through that for we're all on the same level of field to share data back and forth. We're working through it. And that's pretty much our plan.
Chief, you mentioned the cooperative relationship, contractual relationships we have with Wade Hampton and Parker. Correct? We still have those you mentioned.
Yes, sir. We still have those agreements.
Do we have a similar arrangement with the Belmont Fire District? You talked about Donaldson Fire District, Belmont down there in that same section.
We're working on that right now with Belmont, with legal, with city legal right now with those contract agreements with Belmont. Yes, sir.
It's a very small fire district, but we're really beginning from an annexation standpoint to be moving all around the Belmont Fire District. What's your relationship with them?
Correct. Yes, sir. So, well, we'll see how it goes as we annex more. We'll see how the relationship changes. But yes, sir, we do work with them. We have a mutual aid response right now.
We do have mutual aid with them.
We have mutual aid response with them now. Yes, sir.
Okay, that's important.
Chief, thank you for this presentation. I guess this might be directed more at the city manager than you, but this definitely predates John McDonough for what seems like close to 10 years. I can't tell you how many years. When the Verde Fire Station and when the Augusta Street fire stations were being done, our folks in North Main were told, be patient. We're going to get to Stone Avenue. Just be patient while we get these 2 very needed fire stations done. And in recent months, we now are talking about replacing Stone Avenue. So we've changed our tune from be patient, let's get these 2 fire stations done, then we're going to get Stone Ave to now we're going to relocate it. I'm not an expert in this area, but I will tell you is I'm going to be hawkish on any relocation of that Stone Avenue fire station. So I want to be a part of that. I want to be an integral part of that and make sure that my district is well served by any relocation. Thank you.
Just want to make a comment, you should be hawkish about where the Stone Avenue Fire Department goes, but I just want to clarify, Lily and I both here on, actually, we built 3 new fire stations. First was the North Main Fire Station. That was the first one. That was a heavy lift, actually. We had a hard time finding a piece of property for North Main. Then we did the Augusta Road and the Verde. And then next on the list is Stone and Pleasantburg, I guess, something like that.
Chief, do you have data that you could share? Because I'd be interested in seeing it year over year, maybe for the last 5 years, on overtime of our fire department personnel and how it has varied historically.
I mean, I think you have to take that approach to look at COVID being the last 2 years. We've seen it. So if you look 3 years prior to COVID, we were about the same on overtime. But the last 2 years of COVID, as the world has changed, we've seen a dramatic increase in overtime. But that, again, between being short staffed, finding personnel to work, this whole process of as the world's changed, we've seen a dramatic increase in overtime. As we try to fill positions, we'll see, and hopefully by the end of summer, we'll see those positions filled. And then we'll have a pool of candidates to start looking towards to hire that we have those people already in place. So we'll start seeing that overtime rate drop back to where we've seen previous to COVID.
So I guess I'll put this in the queue of things I'd be interested in a follow-up on. And that would be, because we've got to find a way to function in a post-COVID world, right? And you've got a lot of great recruitment work going on with the department, which I very much appreciate. And I think the community is excited about it. You are unique in that you can hire an 18-year-old, whereas GPD cannot do that. So taking advantage of that is great. But I do want to see that over time, we're having an impact on overtime in terms of retaining the employees that we have and treating them with respect for their time too. So, keep up the good work, but I would like to hear a follow-up maybe halfway through the year to see how it's going.
And Chief, forgive me, I think I missed you when you talked about staffing. Where can you go back to the beginning of the presentation? Where are we within the fire department about staffing?
We have 3 personnel that come out of recruit school this next week. We have 6 more in process that we hope to get on by May 9th, which will leave us 8 positions open. And that's the current 16 we're testing for as entry-level firefighter positions that we hope those 8 to be hired during the summer. And we're actually going to train those people.
So from a vacancy rate standpoint, what does that equate to roughly? I mean, you're not 100% staffed clearly because you've got some vacancies.
We're probably about 8 to 10% currently if you look at the vacancies with those coming in also. But realize also we make this transition to 2 points. As the world changed 2 years ago, we've seen people not moving as much as they had previously, which as we were hiring people that had to be certified, it limited our pool of candidates. That's why we identified we've got to do things differently. So we've changed that model now. But with changing that model, when we start training our personnel, we're looking at about a 3-month process. So by the time they come in the door to get certifications, about 3 months. So we're going to see that number. It's going to take a little longer to get those non-certified people up to par and on the floor. So we'll see that also coming.
So that's great. One final comment from me with appreciation, because you talked about, the measuring and the benchmarking that's done about our response times. And then you've showcased how we're doing, right? And we recognize that with appreciation that we've been strong and we're committed to staying strong. If and as, particularly here in Councilmember Dow mentioned something about overtime in a future report. If you're going to come back and report on that, I'd be interested. I trust all council would like to see this. And I think we've seen it before, although it's probably been a couple of years. Maybe how industry standards in terms of response time look and how we compare there. I mean, it just occurs to me, stating the obvious. I mean, there is some can't do it any quicker. It just takes time to field a call and to get in the vehicle and get there. But there's got to be some target where you say, arguably, you can't get about better than this on average. And that's the type of thing I'd be curious in seeing in a city of our size, with our limits, with our distance from point A to point Z density. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So I think we'll be proud when we see it, but I think we'll also continue to have proper perspective as to kind of what is that best-in-class, about can't get any better on average response. So something to potentially look at in the future meeting. Thanks.
Mayor, members of council, pleasure to be here today to talk to you a little bit about Public Works. We're going to talk through some of our accomplishments over the last year and then kind of look ahead to our goals and priorities for the next year. So we've had a lot going on in the Public Works Department, a lot of capital projects underway. Pleased to report we've completed a lot of these projects and are well underway on some of the other ones that are very important. Few to recognize: the Augusta Street traffic safety and Phase 1 road diet. That was a project that got developed pretty quickly right at the start of the fiscal year. Just really pleased at the way that we got through all the permitting, engineering on that, and public involvement and the public meetings, and glad to see that first phase done. And then we're continuing, as we've discussed, we're continuing to monitor that closely over these next few months to kind of guide us on our next steps forward there. Undergrounding there around Unity Park has gone very well. We were able to get a large part of the phase, what we call Phase 2A, which was getting that duct bank in up to along the full length of Hudson Street, installed sooner than we expected, and anxiously looking for those lines to come down by the end of the year. Some major projects in progress right now: the Swamp Rabbit Trail pedestrian bridges. That is going very well. I don't know if you've been by Haywood Road lately, but you can see got one side of the road pretty much done, and now we're working on the other side. The prefabricated steel bridges are ready. We'll be seeing those delivered in not too distant future, but contractor is slightly ahead of schedule right now on the Haywood, on the Swamp Rabbit bridges, and excited about that. On target to finish by the end of the year, as we've discussed.
Let's keep continuous updates on that.
Yeah.
Good visuals are always there to show, and people ask the question all the time. So
Yeah,
unless you do drive by it every day, you just don't know. So it's a good one to keep reminding people
we'll
about.
work with Beth and her team to try to
Are we
improve
doing
that.
design in-house for the paperclip?
No.
Okay.
The other thing, just to really recognize, was the C fund match that we got for our resurfacing program. You know, that $3 million match, 50 match, so a $6 million resurfacing contract altogether. We're underway with that right now. Very pleased with that. It's on a lot of it's SCDOT secondary roads. These are all roads that run through our neighborhoods, and those kind of critical neighborhood collector roads that we call them. So very excited about that. Doing a lot within our traffic management and traffic engineering work. Our traffic calming program is just as popular as ever right now. We've done a lot here recently to make that program a little easier for the users, as we've moved it to an online kind of portal, and essentially all of the petitioning, the voting, the meetings, everything can kind of be done virtually and online now. So it's made it a lot easier. Still seeing a lot of interest in the traffic calming program, and we've recently made some changes with getting our public works operations crews involved with being able to expedite getting the speed humps installed as they get approved. So pleased with that. Really, a real focus moving forward is going to be on our traffic management and managing our traffic through the city as we look ahead into the next year. Got some things in progress right now some of this was approved through the NIB, but our Intelligent Transportation Systems Master Plan that's underway. We've selected a consultant and getting that work going, and that's going to really guide us for the next 5, 10, 15 years into the future, as far as where we're going from a traffic management and using all the latest and greatest in technologies to advance our traffic system. Got the citywide pedestrian safety study underway. That's very important to all of us, and real pleased to have that kind of started, and looking forward to starting to engage with our neighborhoods here in the very near future with our public involvement. Kind of looking at some of our other projects, other divisions within parking and operations. Our stormwater program is still moving forward very, very nicely. Stormwater 2.0 was approved several years back, and we're just continuing to go down through that program. We recently completed various stream stabilization projects that have been well received and gone over very well, and we've seen really good results from those. Just looking at our wastewater, we're working very closely with DHEC on our permitting, and more recently with our intergovernmental agreement with REWA to kind of establish the next couple years plan for where we're going with our wastewater rehabilitation plan. Parking services, really looking at some different technologies now of what we can implement in our lots and in our garages to improve customer service, make parking experience better for our general public here in Greenville. The Park Mobile application has been very well, going over very well, and we're seeing a lot of utilization of that in the 2 lots we've implemented. That just really makes the parking experience easier for the public. And now we're rolling that out to enhance that in all of our garages as well. The license plate recognition solution has gone really well. It's really improved our efficiency from a parking enforcement standpoint, and just getting parking turned over in our downtown area quicker, which helps with the shopping experience and that sort of thing. Let's see, our facilities group has made all kinds of enhancements with just their data collection and operational efficiencies. We're just doing a lot more now on the facility side to just improve how quickly we can respond to different needs of the various facilities in the city, how we're tracking that information and our response time.
How's the fountain at River Place?
River Place, that was included in our recent bid, and we've got a contractor getting ready to select a contractor for that to do some of those improvements.
So it'll be up this summer, we would expect?
Summer, fall.
It's been out a year now, but, oh well. We'll have a new fountain just up the river, but don't forget about that fountain as well. Children's play fountain, yeah. Right. Yes, that's the one I'm talking about. Yeah. The interactive.
The interactive piece.
But that's under the contract. It will be addressed.
Yes.
Okay.
Not the.
Okay. Okay. Get a lot of inquiries about this. I mean, every summer, entire summer without it, so.
That had been an agreement that we were working with Hughes Association. There was
Right.
a partnership with that, and we have set money aside where we are phase 2, they are phase 1. So as we get closer to them helping implement with the phase 1, we will be able to step in and help with phase 2 repairs to that area.
Well, been out a long time.
It has.
Okay. Thank
For street operations and maintenance, and also with our solid waste, where a big emphasis has been on just cleanliness, make Greenville Cleanville. It's the motto there, but just really doing what we can to improve our right-of-way maintenance program. Also, just our street cleaning, litter pickup program. We've enhanced that to have litter crews coverage 7 days a week now.
Kudos on that. I think we have a level of sophistication in litter removal that's, again, nobody else can touch us with the zones we have. And you make a report and we stay on it, and somewhat obscure locations all over the city, litter gets picked up in a way that's better than anything I've seen in the past. And the maintenance on 385, the gateway into the city, is far, far better than it had been for the last 20 years. So thank you for the new systems in place to make that happen.
Put a focus on that, and
Looks great.
The litter program, it has gone very well. You can see our routes is on the website, so you can check that out and see I think we got 14 routes, and then we have our CBD area too that we focus on. So real proud of the work that Dave and his guys have done on that. They've done a tremendous job. With solid waste and recycling, just continuing to advance that program. We've talked about the volume of work that we experienced this past leaf season. And that was a successful program. We were able to really stay on schedule with our services to our customers and deliver those services while also keeping up with the heavy demand there on the leaf collection. We've brought in recently Lynn Watkins has joined us to lead our recycling as our recycling coordinator. She's been doing a wonderful job with our recycling program, and we're real excited about the kind of work she's doing there to promote that. On our fleet services, again, we were ranked number 1 as the mid-size fleet. This is the second time in 5 years we've gotten that award, so very, very proud of that accomplishment. We have a very good program working with Matt and his team on a vehicle replacement plan. So every 7 to 8 years, we see our rolling stock replaced, which is great. Just looking ahead for the next year with our goals and priorities, on the, big emphasis is going to be on pedestrian safety, traffic management, looking at all of our roadways from not only a vehicular and pedestrian safety standpoint, also just want to make sure we've got a adequate level of service and condition of our infrastructure. And when we start looking at all the growth that we're seeing in Greenville and the new people that are coming to this area, we've got to be able to manage that traffic effectively and efficiently. So looking through all of that through our traffic calming, our traffic management, roadway, and bridge projects. Want to continue to enhance pedestrian safety through our mobility and sidewalk and trail projects. We do have some various new technologies that we've talked about wanting to explore or implement in our parking garages that are going to improve our experience for our residents. Let's see, next slide. Traffic calming. We're looking to expand that program we've made some changes on the operations side to help us expedite getting speed humps installed. And deploy that. So as these programs are getting approved and we're seeing a lot of continued interest in these programs, we're able to respond quicker with implementing the projects.
I get a lot of questions from neighborhoods that had traffic calming many, many years ago, some of the early ones, and they had the old asphalt speed humps. Some cases, we didn't quite get it right in the early days. They were a little abrupt. John, you got a lot of them in North Main area that were early speed humps. And how are we in terms of replacing some that don't work too well?
Yeah, certainly we can look at, case by case instances. If it's just doesn't meet the design standards, it probably needs to be replaced. A lot of them are getting replaced as we're expanding our resurfacing program anytime.
Yeah, that's the time I've seen them replaced. We now have the rubberized version, which are far better, more effective, everything else, than some that still. There are a couple around Stone School in particular, John, that just about
right in front of my house, man.
They just about throw you out of your car, but that's not what we do anymore. So maybe
I will say I launched my car into the air on Salters Road over near your house, Mayor. So Salters is another one to take a look at.
okay, pretty good.
But I mean, better than nothing at this point.
Oh, it's still, nobody wants to take
All
them
in
away,
due
but
time.
they're
All in due
pretty
time.
abrupt, to say the least.
Going to the rubberized humps certainly provided a consistent standard and
much better. Somebody made a lot of money and came up with that idea. Let's make rubberized speed humps.
We prefer to say speed tables.
I get confused.
It's a gentler
I get
term.
confused with that.
So as far as our priorities go, we're going to continue with our public safety. We got the citywide pedestrian safety study that we're going to finish that up in this next year. It's well underway now, and looking forward to coming out of that, we're going to have prioritized recommendations for projects. So this time next year, we'll be discussing some of those projects that we can move forward with and address.
We got great recommendations with a consultant about 2 years ago on traffic fixes that can be made. Some of them kind of simply, some a little more complicated. The ones we have implemented have been extremely successful, like the Lawrence Road extra lane going to 385. But it's, one thing about Greenville, we're not so big. You know where the problems are. We know where the rush hour is, hour and 15 minutes here. You know where the backups happen, and they all need some kind of addressing, some kind of fix, instead of just looking at it. And so I hope we continue to use those recommendations and look for other ways to fix things instead of just accepting it.
Yes, we're continuing to, we constantly refer, that was the 2019 downtown transportation master plan. And actually that's one of the bullets here. We're moving into phase 2 of that, where we'll actually take some of those larger long-range projects and get them prioritized from a cost and budgeting and scheduling standpoint. But yeah, there's still project recommendations. We did the Hawk pedestrian signal on Rutherford Street was another good example of a recommendation that came out of that project. The dual left turn lanes on Stone Avenue. So
It works.
So yeah, traffic management is an important focus of this next budget year. Thank to you for the commitment and the funding that we received through the neighborhood infrastructure bond. I'm very excited about what we can do from a traffic management standpoint, as well as the sidewalk projects and other road and bridge projects that were kind of approved through that NIB. Looking forward to that. That's going to be a big project for us program for us to manage over these next couple of years. We'll be looking to engage with some consultants to help us keep those projects on schedule, and we'll be coming back on a regular basis, providing schedule updates and progress updates to you as we move forward with the NIB.
I have a couple of questions, Clint.
Sure.
This is a reiteration on the ITS system. Whatever we can do and when we're ready to communicate that to the public, similar to how we've done on the Greenville Development Code, right? We're banking a lot on this system helping really address our traffic challenges. And so I really want the community to be aware of what we're doing and get it out of the alphabet speak and get it down to this is what it'll mean on the ground. So when you're ready and that can be pushed on comms, I encourage you to do that. The other thing is a question. Do we capture data in our parking garages of usage rates on the the spaces that are dedicated for electric vehicles? Usage being, because you can't park there if you're not electric.
Right.
And so I keep driving into parking garages and there they are vacant. I'm sure they're being used, but what I'd like to know is, do we have data on usage of those and usage of the actual charging? And you don't have to answer now, but I'd be interested in seeing that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Usage is definitely way up, though.
Usage
Just
is.
based on observation.
We're actually doing physical monitoring. We're not actually monitoring voltage. The charging stations that we use don't do that. But we do daily monitors of all of the spaces to see how we're doing with the usage so that we know when to add additional chargers because we're getting more and more vehicles, but we are seeing more usage recently.
But we could just as easily add a sign that says electric vehicle only and save the expense of a charging station if we know we have electrical vehicles, and we're obviously trying to give them preferred parking based on where we're locating them. Just something to think about and maybe talk in the aftermath on it.
Sure.
Mr. Mayor. Clint, I want to say thank you for your staff's willingness to help council make pedestrian safety a priority. And I'm really pleased at the direction we're going, in large part to your willingness to do that. And also your staff's willingness to, on these state roads, to work with DOT and not just throw in the towel and say, well, it's a state road, there's really not much we can do, but instead working really hard with your counterparts at DOT to put that humanistic value in what we're trying to do in Greenville. And as you were talking, Mr. Mayor, this all reminds me, a lot of times it's just, I like to get to a yes, and it might be a really, really long yes instead of a short no. But it reminded me 20 years ago when Mayor White called me up and I was at the Greenville Chamber and said, John, you need to go to Asheville and take pictures of these trees in the median of the interstate and bring that back. And I did. And y'all worked long and hard to convince the DOT to allow you to put those trees in the medians. And what a difference the extra mile goes to try to do some really great things here in Greenville. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. And yes, we're continuing to strengthen our relationship with DOT, and what we challenge them often to think outside of the box and outside of their, design standard manual. And I think we've made good progress. And I think the Augusta Street project is a great example to DOT of, starting to look at things a little differently. So I'm excited about that and where that's going to lead with other projects we're looking at.
Awesome. They should make us all look at a lot of things differently. And kudos to all of you for making that happen, Councilman Brazington, for your hard work on that. It's just a joy to ride down there and see it, and to also begin to think about, wonder how this might work in other streets around the city. I just want to thank you guys again for you just pull out rabbits out of hats all the time, and no department of the city is asked to do more than the Public Works Department. And not only do you do it without complaint, you find a way, you get your resources, you work with them, you find a way to get it done. But then you also come up with your own ideas. You outthink us in terms of, hey, we're going to try something new, another program, another thing that no one else has ever done. So we appreciate that so much, and it makes Greenville what it is today.
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize Dave.
They're over there patting each other on the back. That's okay. They're recognizing it. We appreciate it. Yeah.
Dave, I appreciate it, Mayor, and Dave and his team. The team, they do a real good job. I've learned a lot over the last 5
I bet you
months.
have. I bet you have.
Any other questions?
I'm Mayor and Council. This past year has been just an exciting year, and but our department is so looking forward to FY23. We've been building and cleaning up this past couple of years, and so for just looking at what's happening starting July 1, or really in May. So we're going to open Unity Park in less than 60 days, and that is so exciting. And believe it or not, we're really looking forward to it. It's the entire community is just coming to us constantly. And the NIB project, I can't thank you enough for giving us the money to fix up our infrastructure. And we hear every day from our constituents about how exciting they are to see what's happening in the NIB. So I wanted to start with that. For parks, we want to continue to do the tree inventories. We've been working on this for the last couple of years, and really identifying places that we need to plant trees. That's one of your big priorities, so that's one of our big priorities. And continuing to work with planning department and the city manager's department in identifying where we can do better in protecting our tree canopy and adding to our tree canopy. Using City Works has been one of the best things that we've taken on, and it makes us more efficient and a better department. So we will continue to do working on how we use City Works. The Cleveland Park Master Plan, we've dusted it off, and we are looking into what can we do without additional funding just to take that off the shelf and try to implement pieces by here and there throughout the year. We also want to work with private property owners to jump on board on the tree inventory and adding more trees to the city of Greenville. It doesn't all have to be on public property. We need to identify even school district property other than our property, of how can we increase this tree inventory. We're going to complete the green line, our part of the green line of the Swamp Rabbit Trail, including the paperclip. And so getting updates on that regularly. We are going to redo all the beds in downtown, and believe it or not, the Falls Park is getting ready to have its 20th celebration. So we're working with the Garden Club on identifying how do we get back to what we put in the ground 20 years ago and doing a facelift of Falls Park. We've got a couple of bridges, lots of bridges that we're looking at, but two in Falls Park, being the Spring Garden Bridge. You'll see it going under construction very soon, in the garden right next to Pedrick's Garden. Speaking of Pedrick's Garden, Chihuly will be taken down very shortly, cleaned, polished, and put back in. It can't be Angie out there scrubbing the Chihuly, so that's on our project list. I know most of you will be excited to have this last two in here. We're looking at comprehensive sign packages for all of our city parks, but especially Swamp Rabbit Trail, Councilmember Dow and Brazington, and our Falls Park, way past due. We'll have a complete renovation of, I'm working with the Garden Club on that sign package. Moving on to recreation. Again, an exciting year that we're talking about community centers and talking about investing in them. And so that feasibility study is in its last part, and then we're presenting it and making some decisions for our community centers coming up. We will establish year-end marketing plans. We're really having to identify how do we reach those that aren't necessarily on social media and paying attention to what we're sending out all the time. So looking at enhancing our marketing program. We are engaging with community partners and how can we help our community partners get to our audiences in our neighborhoods. We've got a lot of opportunity in space in our neighborhoods and our community centers, and just embracing that partnerships and streamlining our relationships with programming and what is important and what do our citizens want. Instead of us deciding what we need to offer, we're doing a lot of asking and a lot of listening in recreation. Okay, next, tourism. An exciting year. What we're building in tourism, which is also the events and cultural arts. So we've started working with the downtown businesses more and more and communicating with them on anything and everything, and have a team specially designed for that communication. And again, helping, listening to what they need. Unity Park, we've already started with the businesses down there, again, listening and how can we help them facilitate to the public better. So that will continue to grow. We've got some events that we are going to expand on in our off seasons, being around the late fall and Christmas season, holiday season. So got lots of good plans coming up for that. Diversity of events, that is always a focus of ours, and we've got some exciting things coming up for Juneteenth, and we're going to see more and more very deliberate programming to diversify our events. We will continue to work with our fire, police, public works departments to make our events safer. What we have to do in this day and time is totally different than what we had to do in 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And so luckily we have a great team on our senior leadership that believes in this, and a city manager that has done this, and big focus on how we can improve safety at events. We're going to be opening the Unity Park Welcome Center. It will be a great venue. Already have people excited about using this venue. We haven't had anything like this in the past. So really looking forward to that opening. And a lot of you have heard me say there will be an art exhibit that will be in there that we will rotate about every 6 months of local art. We are going to launch the Poet Laureate program in the new year, and looking at something that I know that the mayor has asked for many years, of really how do we do better in our mural program. Okay, next. The Greenville Zoo. Again, we've been building and cleaning up and working on AZA. And so this will be the year that we really get to look at programming and how do we expand our exhibits? How do we do business better? We've got got 2 sloths. And
That's what I just said.
it's so exciting. They're
known for their engagement.
Be there a while.
They're going to be here, and they're so cute, and there's more cuteness to come. I can't really tell you what that is, but I promise you, Bill and I joke of some money makers. And so you can read between the lines on that. But people love babies, right? So the giraffe feeding exhibit, this has been on Bill's list, or the zoo's list to do for 2 years now. And so this will happen in FY '23.
And that's, well, that's one of our, when we go to Riverbanks, that is like
Oh, yeah.
the highlight of the
It's all-
kids. It is.
Yes.
So that's awesome.
We're excited. We need to do better at our food and beverage operations, and they've already started, and we're trying to figure out how to serve better food without having a full-blown kitchen, and we've got lots of ideas that we're working on for that. We are working with the Greenville Zoo Foundation to identify a capital campaign so they can get to work on in raising money for new capital projects, and to continue to grow our guest amenities and our conservation programs. Lots of good things coming up in this fiscal year. Any questions?
I've got just a couple here. So remind me, I feel like I should know this, but I don't. The food operations within the zoo presently is run by whom?
Us. So, but it's a very small place, really have, so I say us, the zoo staff. It's called guest services. They have a couple of microwaves in there. Very limited of what we can do in there.
So under this bullet point, fiscal year 23 priorities, explore options for making improvements. Does that include both looking just at the current state and outsourcing?
Hopefully not
said
the current
operation?
state. We're looking at outsourcing, and if we, outsourcing became very problematic during COVID,
Yeah.
and they haven't gotten their feet back yet. So we're looking at how do we expand what we're offering in the space that we have.
That's great. And then both for you, Angie, and or the city managers, I know this spans departments. I just want to express a personal interest. Like what you point out about City Works, we know how important it is to be efficient with our resources. And so you clearly point that out now. I'd love to see at a convenient time, just sort of what that looks like and what that consists of, how that makes us more efficient, more cognizant of, whatever it said, trouble spots or costly maintenance, ongoing opportunities. I think it's great that we're using that tool, and I think council would appreciate better understanding how, from an operational standpoint, those types of tools, regardless of our manpower, right, or our needs and wants, help us be better while staying leaner at whatever stage we're at.
You can do that. Sure.
That's the same program Public Works has, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and City Council, for your support of the Planning and Development Department. I have with me this evening our two division administrators, Mary Douglas Hirsch and Betty Skinner, and together we oversee the growth and development for the city of Greenville. We are very much integral to the part of that process. And so, as you can see, Greenville 2040 yielded a consistent message from the beginning about the community's commitment to growth. And 2021 was a banner year for us in growth. As you can see, it was a significant year of growth increases. Our permits, reviews, and inspections were the highest they have been to date in 2021. As you study our data for the past 5 years, 2018 was our peak year until 2021. Prior to COVID, permits and reviews actually slowed in 2019. We, of course, dipped in 2020 with a V curve during COVID, but as you can see, 2021 rebounded substantially. Greenville is an attractive destination, and our permitting and reviews reflect this request. Last year, we reviewed over 2,600 permits and issued over 7,100 permits. That's more than 1,000 more than the year before, and the highest we've ever issued year to date for the city of Greenville. Next slide, please. And our inspection numbers follow our permitting numbers. Since 2018, we have seen a 20% increase in inspections. Last year alone, we performed over 20,000 inspections in the city of Greenville. Think about our staff doing 20,000 inspections in the city of Greenville. The reason inspections are important data to track is because inspections represent real projects. While we review many projects and permits, we all know that everything that our staff reviews or our boards and commissions review don't necessarily end up as vertical projects. However, inspections allow us to track our real growth. You will see our inspection numbers were the highest in 2019, following the high number of reviews and permits in 2018, until, of course, last year, our banner number year of 2021, which seems to indicate that project reviews are resulting in actual projects. Inspections also identify the complexity of a project. As construction gets taller and lots become smaller, the amount of inspections needed increase. Next slide, please. And projects on the drawing board are not slowing either. A review of our Planning Commission and Design Review Board agendas tells our story of growth and the number of projects we are reviewing. Our Planning Commission meetings for the past 6 to 8 months are easily lasting more than 3 hours on average. And we thank our citizen volunteer boards for their commitment to the community. Through your support of planning and development, the additional staff you budgeted in 2020 and 2021 allows our department to better serve the community. By adding staff, our department capacity has allowed more thorough reviews and inspections, more initial meetings on design and construction, and ultimately more compliant construction. We are collaborating more with the design community and the building and construction community to try and make sure that the projects presented to the community are compliant with code, both zoning and building code. We spend a significant amount of time facilitating the development reviews for this community. And as you can see, at the number of planning reviews that the team performed last year, again, almost 7,000.
But the really great thing, Shannon, is that we saw this coming. You saw this coming last budget session, laid it all out. We knew this was coming down the pipe, and we acted on it. And you challenged us to step up and do it. And you were so relentless. Of course, we gave you everything you wanted.
Something tells me she's going to ask again.
No small thing that ability was there, that we anticipated, that you anticipated, and we did it. But also, it's no small thing that you were able to quickly find people to fill these roles and to get going on this. So that's a huge thing. And a lot of other communities, again, have been kind of laying in the dust because they're not able to catch up. We do feel like, thanks to your leadership, that we've been able to at least hang in there, at least.
Thank you, Mayor. I really appreciate that.
And I think, speaking for council, we've talked a little bit about this before. If anything we can do in terms of process, we talked about the DRB, if there's some things that staff can review instead of full DRB review, like maybe it's time for signage. And it's one I always think about, that maybe signage should be staff and maybe not hold public hearings on signage anymore, because we just can't do it anymore. We're a bigger city now. So I think I'm all in favor of any ideas you may have to lighten your burden so you can focus on what's really important.
Good, thank you. Actually, Edward and I met with Carmela Chaffee, who is our DRB urban chair, several weeks ago to discuss that very issue. And we will be having some resolutions coming forward to you in the future about pushing some reviews more to a staff level and really focusing their reviews on larger projects within the community, such as signage, and having all the signage in the C4 area reviewed by our professional staff.
And y'all know better than us on what things probably should be that way. And then normally in a lot of cities, bigger cities than us, these things are still reviewable. If someone wants to have a review to a larger body, you have that opportunity. But for most routine things, we still could carry that along a little faster.
So while we're on that note, CZB is also are they looking at that for DRB as well as BZA? And okay.
Yes, sir.
So in addition to that, we've got that effort.
That's all part of the land management ordinance or Greenville Development Code rewrite, is how we can make our processes simpler, easier, and more attainable to all. And what I mean by that is making sure that everyone understands the process, whether they're a resident, whether they're a business owner, whether they're a developer.
Mm-hmm. And have we added more staff for the inspections as well?
That'll be coming before you for a request.
I figured she was asking for something.
More inspectors.
I hope I'm laying out the case tonight for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And in terms of if you're going to transfer something for a staff review, et cetera, is there going to be different training, even though they may be professional, so there's consistency in what they're saying to everybody?
I think we're already doing that now, and we're just taking it through that extra process. And I would argue that the professionalism of our staff is at the point of such that we can do that without having to go through a separate board and commission to essentially concur with staff's review of the project.
Where it should be.
And will that include training for the boards and commissions as well?
Yes, ma'am.
And we, and I think also, I think I speak for all the council that, we're having a lot of meetings all the time and the public is. And there were years ago, we had someone from Ms. Fleming's neighborhood come to a city council meeting. She came with the sole purpose to tell us, you're meeting us to death at our neighborhood. Well, okay, we heard her. They were having, in fact, to use the example of some park meetings she went to, and basically it was just over moving a bench from point A to point B. And she said, that was just not, we don't have time to worry about it. Well, sure, of course, if we'd moved it without the meeting, they would have complained about that. So, but seriously, I think it's a good time always to take some reflection on how we're doing and maybe if we're spending too much on this. And we do respect the staff time and we do know we need to move projects forward.
Yeah, and as we do the changes, et cetera, my neighborhoods, all of them, they're very intense. And I think some of them are like me, they're retired, but I don't know whether they have what they're doing. But anyway, they're gonna do a whole lot of questioning and a whole lot of gotcha. So we make sure that when we do the changes that it doesn't something that your staff don't have to spend a whole lot of time answering questions. We just give them the information and do what we need to do. And also in that, and I need to set up a meeting at a time because there are some neighborhoods that ask questions and complain about everything. And I just need to know why they're complaining about every move that's being made at the city of Greenville. I don't understand it. So bless your heart. Yeah, it's just wonderful to grow, but it's very painstaking. I'm serious. I don't know what it is. They move everybody into my district that has all these wonderful complaints. They go out and find stuff. So, but anyway, we're going to be all right.
I wanted you to see the amount of workload that is going through the Planning and Development Department, because that's a reflection that is going to eventually affect all of the departments within the city as we continue to absorb this growth. So while it may look specific to Planning and Development, it actually it's going to affect police, it's going to affect fire, it's going to affect Parks and Recreation, et cetera, because of the fact that we are growing like this. And it's exciting, obviously, but we do have a lot of workload that is before us. And I think that we've done a good job at trying to address that over the past year. Sir. I actually think that it's going to improve it because right now we spend a lot of time working on projects that have to go through an entitlement process. And by that, I mean they have to go through a rezoning process or they have to go through multiple steps to get to the conclusion. By really looking at doing the kind of code that we're talking about, I think we're going to reduce those entitlement steps, which will reduce our staff's workload, as well as we will also be expanding some of the uses, which will reduce the amount of workload that goes before boards and commissions. Where I don't think it will really reduce workload is for our building and codes department, because our building and codes are still going to have to review all the permits. They're still going to have to do all the inspections. They're still going to have to issue those permits, be out in the field, doing property maintenance. But I do think it will help with the workload for the planning division.
Just the one-offs, you're talking about the processes and stuff, but the one-off deals y'all deal with, right? Seeking
Yes.
clarification or explanation.
Every day.
Yeah.
All day, every day.
That'd have to be a big game changer.
It's a big game changer because right now people don't know how to interpret the code. And so they're always looking to make sure that they have a clear understanding of the code so that they feel comfortable in moving forward. So as you know, we adopted Greenville 2040 early last year. We completed 2 small area plans and we redesigned our planning department organization. We have created 3 distinct divisions within planning, consisting of our long-range planning division, current planning division, and urban design division. Our design division has helped elevate our staff approach to projects. We are holding multiple meetings with applicants prior to submittal, elevating both our resulting designs and our customer service. Also, the Planning and Development Department provides technical assistance to other departments, City Planning Commission, and City Council. A good example was the work that we did to support Public Works on the urban design analysis for the Augusta Road Street Diet. At City Council's request, our staff prepared multiple text amendments for development for projects directly abutting single-family development, and they were successfully adopted. And just to remind you of all the work that we did as part of that, they included text amendments for outdoor activity for commercial properties facing corridors instead of along the residential properties behind, commercial trash locations and collections, light pollution, field changes to construction without board or staff approval, lot coverage allowances, building height transitions between uses, setback requirements, landscape buffer requirements, parking requirements, adoption of different table of uses, stormwater controls, and traffic impact analyses. And don't forget our changes to noise ordinance and construction hours that were also in response to council requests.
There were 19 plus of them?
16
Okay.
text amendments.
Highlight of our time at the conference center. Other than the statues, it was the highlight of the time.
You all loved that
Conference
so
center.
much. You're like, oh Lord, here she comes
Well,
again.
We'll never forget either one of those.
To be clear, that was done essentially in 3 months
Yeah.
because it went from March through the end of June. So in 3 months, staff churned out 16 text amendments.
In addition to all of our normal
Right.
board and commission agendas on a monthly basis, and as we see, the highest year for plan reviews, applications, permits, and inspections. Next,
And I appreciate what you said to answer Councilman Gibson's question about some of these things, really actually let you be more efficient. I mean, a lot of those things you just mentioned are going to make it a lot easier for people to do business in the city of Greenville, for people to understand what the rules are
that's right.
than before.
I think we need to require that staff also to get regular checkups. I'm serious. I am serious. All that running around. I feel for Buddy. I ain't telling how many steps he done climbed and windows he done jumped through. You know, I'm just saying, we got to take care of our staff. I'm just saying, there's a whole lot of stuff going on.
Yes, I don't want them jumping through windows.
Oh, I'm just saying. Oh, okay.
Thank you. Okay, our building and codes division flourished during COVID, building upon our existing systems so that permitting and inspections did not slow. The department split their location with our permit technicians located at the entrance to Greenville City Hall so the public may access us in person, by phone, or online. Our building and codes division has been nimble and adaptive over the past few years, never missing a beat on providing services. We promoted staff and are trying to ensure that they are involved in all facets of the process. In planning, we initiated the rewriting of the Greenville Development Code, and we elevated annexation as one of our priorities. I think the mayor recently mentioned he hadn't seen this many annexations in one council meeting in 10 years. We have 4 annexations on the April Planning Commission meeting agenda and more on the drawing board for the upcoming months. Next slide, please. When you review our budget numbers, you will see a continuing emphasis on supporting our economic vitality through implementation of Greenville 2040, with investments in technology for our building and codes division and additional small area plans on the drawing board, all to help keep this the best small town in America. You'll see we're continuing our steadfast efforts to adopt the new Greenville Development Code. We are collaborating with our community partners as well as Greenville County and the city of Malden on joint planning efforts. You will see continuing efforts to implement the strong recommendations of the Greenville 2040 plan, including collaborating with our Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Department on creating a systems matrix for identifying undeveloped lands and determining their value as potential open space. This is a significant recommendation of Greenville 2040, and now that we have the Greenville Development Code underway, we are poised to focus our efforts on other components of the Greenville 2040 plan for implementation. The Planning and Development Department would not be successful without the partnership of our other departments, including Public Works, Parks, Recreation, and Tourism, Economic Development, OMB, and Communications, just to name a few. They each play a specific role in the planning for this community. Thank you to our incredible staff for their commitment and service during this unprecedented season of growth.
Great work. Can you elaborate on the last bullet point? Neighborhood plans?
Yes, we've been, each one of our planners have been going to the neighborhood meetings, and we just want to make sure that we continue working with Leslie and our communications team to try to be as present in as many neighborhood meetings as we can, because having that connection into the community really helps with our planning efforts so that they know who to talk to and we know that how they feel about things as we start to see this kind of growth and development within the community.
But it's not as formalized per se, is it, where certain individuals have assignments or standing connections with the neighborhood?
They do.
They do? Okay.
And I just want to say that that's really actually extremely helpful, particularly
Yes, it
when
is.
we have constituents at meetings who have questions. To have someone there who can answer their question on the spot, it makes it a whole lot easier. So
And
the
please
consistency.
keep doing that.
Your consistency helps them Because they'll know which people will answer and how they want their questions to be answered. And it does make it easier. A new person it'll take them a while to get a grasp of it, but keeping it consistent has made a difference. Particularly
you.
in, my name is.
I hope you can really emphasize that with your staff because, a staff person assigned to different neighborhoods, the next time a zoning issue comes up in that neighborhood, it's really important for them to know, well, where is this and what's the impact going to be? And is there a person I might call to get some insight about this? Some of our biggest problems have been where something goes along on the staff level and it blows up at the end. Well, that's because they didn't know, they were new. They don't know Greenville as well as they should. So that education of the neighborhoods is really, that's a really good idea to emphasize that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Shannon, kind of to that point on public inclusion as we grow and on projects. And this is something that I don't know if we can address in the development code or if it's something staff level or even if it's doable. But I think we do a great job of allowing public input during the process. So whether it's PC, BZA, DRBU, DRBN, those are open meetings. Granted, they don't start later in the evening. They usually start around 4, but I also am respectful of the volunteers' time, not wanting to be there till 10. They're streamed live. There's an opportunity to, submit. And there's inevitably the packet that a developer submits has artist renderings, may have a color palette, may have a facade list. Where I get upset people calling is, and this is true whether it's a big scale project or a smaller neighborhood project, is when what is there at the end looks vastly different from what was in that packet to begin with. And how that's happening could be through value engineering. Sort of a misnomer when you're the person standing there looking at the project. Value engineering is a nice way of saying we had to cut costs. And so in the end, what they got in the facade looks very different than what they saw when they first went to that PC meeting and spent 10 months advocating to their council members. And they, and I can think of specific examples.
I got 2 on stone.
Right. And
Yep.
those, and they're so right. It is not, we've got to do better on, either educating the public or keeping a hand on changes down the road and all that matters is the facade. What they do within the building, the neighborhood doesn't have a say on. But when what's built looks vastly different than what was shown on that slide in the end, because the developer had to cut costs, then the neighborhood and the public that was involved feels duped and ripped off. And that to me is something that cannot continue.
But can we put on those things that this may not be what it looks like at the end? We got to put some, how you put things, the final draft will change. And if it does change significantly,
Actual results may vary.
I think the point is
The image may be larger than it
is when you cut costs, which everybody has. I mean, I'm in
Yeah,
a
we have to
renovation
do that.
right now. I'm bleeding every day having to find places to cut costs. But when you do it on what everybody's looking at and what everybody was sold as the facade, then that's kind of crossing a line in my mind for the neighborhood, and in that public process at the beginning, they're left with the feeling of what was the point. What we got in the end was not what we collaborated on and bought in on. John, do you have something to say?
I was going to say, aren't we going toward that? Aren't we trying to go toward that?
So I think that there's a variety of answers here. First off, I think that obviously it's our job to catch it during the permitting process. So hopefully we are seeing some of that during the permitting process. And I do know that with our current staff, I think that they are spending a significant amount of time on making sure that what is permitted is what was approved.
Right.
Having said that, there's a couple things that can happen. One is sometimes renderings can be deceptive. And when you actually, it's meant to sell the project. Mm-hmm. And so when you actually look at the elevations or you see it in the field, it maybe doesn't actually look what you thought, because a rendering is, really a 2D version of what it's actually going to be in the field. And when it's there, the mass may be different, the form may be different, the color may be different. And some of that is even down to how you see it as a rendering, and then what the actual material that they were able to acquire, even the differences in color would be, something in the field. The other issue that can happen are changes that are made in the field without staff approval. And one of the text amendments that we passed earlier this summer was the Affidavit of Compliance to ensure that those things do not happen. So what that's saying is at the end, Mr. Owner, developer, you're saying that this is constructed, in accordance with what was approved. And I think that that was a very important text amendment to help address the issue. So what may have happened a few years ago can't address now, but going forward, we already have a stopgap measure in place to address that concern. And finally, I think with the development code being more of, we're trying to look at how we can really address form in the development code, providing better graphics, providing better pictorial examples will help us reduce those conflicts in the future, because we want to make sure that the community is happy with what they get, is proud of the resulting product. And I think that the planning staff takes a lot of pride in that and making sure that the projects do turn out the way that they were proposed. And, part of that though, and something to keep in mind as we move forward with the development code, is that design usually equals an increase in cost. With the current inflation numbers and the supply chain demands, we are constantly being pulled at by development community that we have to find a balance here between the design and the costs.
Well, I would just say we go to a lot of trouble to have the facade reviewed by, especially multifamily. So we send it up the flagpole with DRB, not an official review, goes before the PC. We have countless meetings. And then in the end, what's built is not what all those people reviewed and approved, because it got VE'd toward the end. And that, I think, is going to continue to be a problem unless we do something about it earlier in the project.
Sure. And I hope that the things that we've put in place will help with that. I think the addition of the staff to be able to make those reviews during the permitting process is key to that being successful.
Okay.
Thanks for all your work.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Pleasure to be here. Humbled in many ways to be able to present before you this afternoon. I think it says a lot about the value that y'all place on communication, engagement, and neighborhoods, and how important it is to you that your message and your priorities are being communicated to our citizens. So really, we have three goals in our department, and that's promoting your priorities, telling our own story through using reporters, videographers, and photographers, and then really doing our best to serve as a full service public relations agency, advertising agency, graphic design agency for internal city departments. And so this is how we measured our performance. How many media mentions did we get of your priorities? How many stories did we produce internally on your priorities? How engaging are our social media accounts? How many people are visiting our website, and is that increasing? And how often were we able to do projects for other city departments? And so using Cision, which is a media monitoring service, I've got an Excel spreadsheet, and I'm happy to print out all of these for you if you would like to see them. But we do feel like we got some good media mentions over the last fiscal year of your priorities, and a majority of them were positive. And so again, just pleased to be able to put that focus, search the keywords, City of Greenville, a little bit of a margin of error sometimes with the TV clips. It's within 2 minutes of a mention, or it will mention somebody who was on a board and commission with the city. But ultimately, we feel like these numbers are really close to accurate. And so also, obviously, we have some in-house production folks, multiple videographers, Lauren Thomas, who you see on the air often. These are stories that we calculated through week in review coverage. As you know, we separate those by your priorities. So as we went back through over the past year, this is the number of mentions that we did through our social media accounts in the week in review on your priorities. So the question then is, okay, so you're doing all these stories, but are anybody Is anyone seeing them? Is anybody reacting to them? Do they care? And so this is the exciting piece for me as a communicator. Our social media engagement and accounts, the number of followers continues to grow. 13,000 additional followers on Facebook over the past year. The video views, again, if you wonder, are people watching this on Facebook alone? 1.5 million views of our videos. And the big thing for me, pointing people back to our website. These are people who saw something on social media and were teased by the idea, but said, you know what, I want to learn more. I want to dig deeper into the details of this. And so they went from Facebook, which is the largest driver for us, followed by LinkedIn, to our website. And so if you look at that, it's a huge growth over the last 2 years, 10,000 link clicks 2 years ago to almost 25,000 this year.
Hey, Beth, does Facebook Analytics allow you to, with some degree of confidence, understand how many of those 68,000 are climbing or City of Greenville residents based on the information they give Facebook when they create an account?
Yes.
Do you have that to share with us?
I don't, but it would be pretty easy to find. I would let you know that when we target people, we do find it's a good number of county residents who follow us, simply because of their interest in the things that we post about, whether it be park updates and their interest in coming into the city for activities and events.
I know our appeal goes way beyond the city limits, but at the same time, it'd be good from a messaging communication standpoint to know how many of those that we represent and serve are following the good stories you're promoting.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll dig into that.
And Beth, you said Facebook followed by LinkedIn. LinkedIn
Yes.
is our second largest.
Yes. It has been, and we'll show you here. So LinkedIn is where we've made the biggest investment over the last 2 years, recognizing that this is a professional platform. It's a great place to share stories of innovation and where people really seem to engage at a professional level. So the video views alone, again, we weren't necessarily using it for this purpose a couple of years ago, but in 1 year, video views on LinkedIn went from 137,000 or from 32,000 last year to 137,000 this year. And again, the link clicks, 52,000 this year versus 2 years ago, only 857. So these are professional folks who were following LinkedIn because they care about business, they care about government, and they're deeply engaged with priorities and really have an interest in the meat of what we're doing, as opposed to, not that anything we do here is frivolous, but LinkedIn, we don't put the same content on every page. And LinkedIn is very specific, focused, often to economic development, growth, planning, those sorts of things. So
How far behind is Instagram?
There we go. Instagram is our platform that we love for the younger demographic. These are the families. These are the young professionals. I think we're actually up to about 53,000 now. And so just seeing a huge growth in video views there as well. Folks who literally tell us that they have their Saturday morning coffee with Lauren Thomas and the video week in review. There's an entirely different demographic of people who are learning about city news. Lauren gets recognized in the field. It's pretty neat. It's fun to watch. And so again, as we look to these young families, these young professionals, it's also where people react the most, where people seem to respond and comment the most as well on Instagram. And then finally, Twitter. This is where we put out news, we put out a lot of alerts, but are also seeing the number of link clicks growing, not as quickly as some of the other platforms, but the number of people, resending our message. So we've tripled the number of tweet replies and doubled the link clicks. So all of that has been good news over the past year.
And that's all about telling our story.
It is. It's about producing great content that people not only want to see, but that they want to share. And so that's how you grow your platform. People see it, they share it. Somebody else says, wow, that's really cool. I want to see more of this kind of content. So if the numbers are going down, it means we're pushing out things that people don't care about. Yeah. And if the numbers are going up, it means we're on the right track. This one is really close to my heart. And I know that I think y'all have seen that we work really hard to make sure that when we start a new project, whether it's pedestrian safety, Augusta Street, Unity Park, whatever it may be, we're trying to do these individualized web pages that we try to give you all a preview of. But this idea that people have this kind of mothership or this landing page to come back to where they can learn more, they can see old survey results, they can see a timeline of the project. And so the engagement on the website has been significant. We're looking at probably by June, about 5.5 million unique page views, new users to the page, projected at almost 2 million. And again, I think this is targeting those folks when we go out in public meetings and attaching the links to social media and letting people know this is where you can come back for more information, and making sure that a website is living and breathing. You can add to a page at any point. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, we're good now. Thank you. And so the last piece of the major things that we do is obviously work for other city departments. Always really thankful when I hear people like Shannon and other departments say, oh, it was great working with comms on such and such project. Obviously do a significant amount of work with Angie's team and Tara's team, followed by Public Works, ED, Greenlink, GPD, Fire Zoo. We did a couple of things for the mayor this year. I think it involved the signs at the Parallel Parkway. Yeah. And some other folks. So yes, we are pleased that we continue to be available to other departments. Some of our big accomplishments, we added a newsletter. We continue to take this idea of the large weekend review that you receive as a report. A year ago, we added Lauren in the video. This past year, we've added a newsletter, which is a 2-pager. It's now distributed in the community and digitally. And we have hired a person who translates that each week. So it's available to citizens who do not speak English, but speak Spanish. Obviously launched the From Here You Can Change the World campaign in September, relaunched the website on Friday, and it now has a jobs board, the social media aggregator, and continue to grow those pages as well. We hosted 2 what we thought were really successful neighborhood president lunches. It was really nice to be back in person after COVID. Looking forward to the next one on April 25th. We'll have some fun giveaways at that one as well. And then, of course, pleased that Lauren and the team won the Communications Award from the Municipal Association for the Weekend Review Project. So what's next? These are our goals for the next year, is to continue to be data-driven in how we engage the public. Very specific targeted social media growth. We want to expand our neighborhood texting, which is something we started this year, upgrade the website. It's been about 10 years since we've done a website upgrade, and considering the volume of people that are now visiting it, we want to make sure it's mobile friendly. We want to make sure that the agenda center, I think Camilla will nod her head and Shannon will nod her head, that some of these features for people in terms of transparency and their ability to see content, the platform we're using is just a little bit out of date. And then finally, continue with our economic development marketing. And so goal 1, we have brought on for a 1-year pilot program and an agency called Zen City, initially out of Israel, but they are artificial intelligence, social listening. They will scrape any public-facing web pages and allow us to kind of listen in on what some concerns may be and be more proactive in our communication. So rather than, waiting until we start hearing complaints, sometimes, neighbors talk to each other first. And they say, hey, did this happen to you? Did this happen to you? And if that's on social media, we can hear some of that and be a little bit more proactive. Have someone from Greenville Cares reach out. Have somebody message on social media and say, hey, why don't you call this person? So we're going to continue to be proactive and data-driven in our public engagement. Second goal, targeted social media growth. So we still think that LinkedIn is an incredible way to go. We'd like to have a 30% increase there over the next year. It is the only platform that you can target by both industry and job function. So we can very specifically, particularly when it comes to economic development, target specific users with different content to kind of match your goals and match ours. And again, after Facebook, it's the largest driver to our website from social media. Instagram, recognizing that even though we have a slightly smaller audience on Instagram, the engagement there is huge. People are just reacting, talking. And so 2/3 of the Instagram audience, 44 or younger. So again, growing families, young professionals. This is the true storytelling platform. It's where people come to see the pretty pictures of Falls Park. They want to see the flowers. They want to hear about the events. It's where all the beautiful stuff happens. We have had a good launch of our neighborhood texting. It was a program we put in place, and our goal this year is to get it into every single city neighborhood. Right now, we have 13 neighborhoods actively participating. This is something where both the neighborhood presidents have the ability to use this service that's provided by the city to text their residents, but we can also target our communication to specific neighborhoods, whether it be a road closure, whether it be a public meeting, whether it be a survey that pertains to neighborhoods. We're just finding that it's really direct, it's really specific, and people can click on it from their phone. So you will, we'll give a hint that may be giveaway related at the next neighborhood president meeting, a way for folks to get more involved in that.
Beth, in my day job, this has been we've started this a couple of years ago. It's been wildly successful.
Yeah.
It's convenient, and it gets right to the point. People can look down and either engage or not.
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing that you can peek at in a meeting. We discovered it at the school district. Parents a lot of times couldn't answer a phone call while they were on the job. But if you see something, hey, oh, wow, I'm getting this message. Oh, there's a road closure in my neighborhood. I need to be aware of that as I drive home. So it's one of those things that, unlike a voicemail or unlike a social media post that might be blocked at work, you can get this information much more quickly. And so we think it's great, and we can use it both as a city and in neighborhoods. 2 more quick goals, and then I am out of your hair. Again, mentioned we haven't upgraded the website in about 10 years. It really is the hub of telling our own story. Greater transparency, more accessible agenda center, really want the ability to embed more video in the website, and want to improve the speed and the customer service in those features. And then finally.
So we are going to have a redo of the website finally.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The platform that we have been using has invested in subsidiarial
It's a good kick. It really does.
Yes. We agree.
There's so much to share, but yeah.
Yes. It allows a lot more design flexibility. The one that we have right now is very stringent, and not a whole lot you can do with it. Finally, economic development marketing, looking to produce 2 entrepreneur videos per month, focusing on biotech, AI, fintech, automotive, innovation, advanced manufacturing, those key clusters that we're looking to bring here to Greenville. Continue to expand the photo, video, and written content creation, advertising some of our co-working spaces, partners, and support programs. Do want to have significant social media growth this year in the UCAN platforms. Very much so felt like we need to have, in the same way that I believe the city, you got to produce the content first, and then you drive people to the page. And so we're now at a point where the content looks great. There is something that people can actually scroll through. So this is the year that we're going to start pushing people toward that content, whether it's through national media mentions, looking to do a couple of significant ad buys in major magazines, and host some events that we can put our name on and bring people there to network. So partnerships are key. And that's what I got. Any questions before I sit down? Good.
We'll text you.
Yeah. I know you will.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you all for your patience and attention today, and thank you to all the departments and all your effort to put together these slides. The remaining departments that have not presented, their information is available to you all now in your Teams folder and will be available on the public agenda this afternoon, so you can review not only what's been presented today, but the reports from the remaining departments. And I can sort of hear your voice saying, Matt, where are the numbers? This is a budget meeting, right? And so this is part of a strategy that we've used over the last few years. This first budget workshop is really about progress and priorities. Let's tell you how we did based on what you wanted us to do last year, and let's tell you what our goals are for next year to advance city council priorities. And so as we do that, the budget is really just the financial plan for how we execute on your vision. So we wanted to spend time today talking about that, making sure we're hitting the high points and the departments have an understanding of what priorities are. In the background, Christina and her team, raise your hand, Christina. They're working on putting together all the pieces for over 25 funds and 4,000 individual accounts to bring all this together so that on April 25th, when we come together for our second budget workshop, we can present you all concise information and show you here's where the money has been, here's where it's going, here's where our resources are allocated. And so to that end, our summary and next steps, identify priorities within our work plan that we've got the capacity to do within existing funding. Then start identifying resources to support our budget assumptions that we've talked about today and will further develop. Greenville 2040, the development code, infrastructure investments, and high quality citizen services. So when we come together in 2 weeks for budget workshop number 2, we'll have our revenue projection packages and we'll start to line up. Here's our money, here's our resources, here's your priorities, and here's how they come together. I will plug this every time I have an opportunity to be in front of you all, that on an ongoing basis, we are identifying state and federal resources to augment our local resources outside of the budget process. So you may not hear about it in 2 weeks or as we're putting together the budget, but our staff is hard at work identifying grant opportunities, matching partnerships, and things like that to really leverage our local dollars. In addition, hopefully in the next day or two, you all will get an email from me regarding our capital planning priorities and an update on that. So we talked kind of high level at the retreat. Here are a bunch of projects that we've heard from you all that you may want to focus on. Over the last few weeks, we've narrowed that down to a handful, a dozen or so of high impact projects that touch every council district. And so you'll get information from us saying, here's what we've heard. Let's start putting together your wants with our resources. And so that'll be out to you all here in the next few days. Finally, at the council retreat, we talked about a council dividend policy. So this is an update to the city's fund balance policy where when we have resources above and beyond our 20% cushion reserve, we're going to start dedicating a good portion of that to CIP reserve. So reserving capacity for future projects. So we're not in as much as a pay-go or debt issuance basis for future projects, but then also allocate resources to the 4 council districts for smaller projects that may not compete at the level of these high projects. And so the first draft of that will come to you all also at the next meeting. So we've had budget workshop number 1 today. Workshop number 2 is in 2 weeks. The feedback from that will be advertised on May 8th in the newspaper in terms of our initial draft budget. And then on May 23rd, we'll have our public hearing and first reading of the budget ordinance. And so that's all I have today. Again, thank you to all the departments, and you all please do, if you have a chance, check out their materials.
And you've got your crystal ball on the national economy. Of course, you know exactly where things are going, but it's a little scary right now. So I think
it is.
I mean, we probably need a little admonishment on the front end in terms of what may or may not happen in 2022.
Our projections will be very conservative and sufficiently vague. Yes, sir.
I think that's important. Thank you.
Nice work. Thanks, man.
Very good. Absolutely. Yeah, very good work. I think we need to take a break. Before we hear from Shannon and them on Woodruff Road. Okay. 5 minutes, basically 5 to 10 minutes. Thank you. We're going to change the agenda a bit.
Mayor, I think we'll do the Woodruff Parallel Area Draft Plan, and then we'll move to executive
Yep.
session after that.
Good evening again. I know that you're just waiting for this one. I think Councilmember Gibson said this is why he wanted to make sure he made a meeting tonight. Sorry. Thank you for being here. This is a quick update on the Woodruff Road Congestion Relief Project, and Keith Brockington, who is our Transportation Planning Manager for Greenville County and GPATS, is here with us this evening. So thank you, Keith. Keith has been leading us on this project. As a quick recap and to get the public up to date, SCDOT is leading the efforts on the Woodruff Road Parallel Congestion Relief Project. For those interested in the project, and this is the project study area direct from their website, for those interested in the specifics, you may visit Fix Woodruff Road, all spelled out.com. They held a public engagement meeting last Tuesday night, April 5th, and the comment period is open until April 28th. So it's really important. All written comments have to be submitted on this project by April 28th. The preferred alternative would provide a new 5-lane limited access alternate parallel route to Woodruff Road that extends from Verde Boulevard to Smith Hines Road. The plan would be an extension of Parallel Parkway, crossing 85 and connecting to Carolina Point Parkway. It would then run essentially parallel to Woodruff Road, tying into and terminating at Smith Hines Drive. And if you go on the website, you can actually see the specific sections, but it's just a building upon our existing parallel parkway.
Right.
Detailed maps of the project, as well as the specific project sections, are available at the aforementioned website. Next slide, please. So why is this important for the city of Greenville? We want to adopt access management regulations that promote shared access points and provide for limited access on this road. One of the reasons Parallel Parkway is successful is because it is a limited access roadway. As new development occurs in this area, we want to ensure that we maintain the ability of the road to function as a relief corridor. And I think that's really important. This is meant to be a relief corridor. Property owners are being contacted as they are affected by the road design, and we, planning and engineering, are considering it in review and in discussion with potential developers. And in fact, our staff met internally on a new project today that this will be affected by this road change. Ownership of the roadway has not yet been determined, but the city wants to have input on the final design standards. So next slide, please. So therefore, at your upcoming regular agenda meeting on April 25th, staff will present you a memorandum of understanding for your consideration between the city of Greenville, the city of Malden, and Greenville County. This MOU will establish a focused planning effort for the area surrounding the Woodruff Road Congestion Relief Parallel Road. Together, planning for the proposed project right-of-way allows us to share information relevant to residents, businesses, and developers about the road design. We are proposing to establish a common plan amongst the 3 jurisdictions that will holistically address the needs of the corridor. This is an example of good planning by collaborating on a strategy, not allowing jurisdictional boundaries to interfere with long-range transportation planning for the entire community. I think it's really exciting that we're going to be entering into this partnership with both Greenville County and the city of Malden to do a holistic planning area. And I think it really shows what foresight that the entire upstate community has by entering into such a partnership for this planning effort. Next slide, please. To reiterate, comments must be submitted to SCDOT by April 28th, 2022. Please visit fixwoodruffroad.com for additional information. Again, staff will present the MOU to you at the next meeting, and Keith is planning on introducing the MOU at the Greenville County Planning and Development Committee on Monday, April 18th. Finally, we will compile our comments from staff and give them to Keith and to submit on behalf of our working team. And just so you know, our staffs have met probably close to 3 or 4 times together, already working on the plan for this. We just met week before last over at Greenville County and had an extensive planning session amongst our 3 jurisdictions of the staff. At this time, Keith and I are available for any comments. We are excited to have this opportunity to work and plan together. And please.
We are glad to have Keith with us and to work with the county. And Keith, we got there first. We're proud to set the standard and, address an issue that seemed impossible to manage, which was what do you do about the traffic on Woodruff Road? And we're extremely excited about what we saw as a result of Parallel Parkway. And we know extending it will just be as exciting for the rest of the county.
So yeah, we're very excited about this, and Shannon's been fantastic, and Clint has been a part of it as well, and Mary Douglas as well. We've been very pleased with the support that Mr. McDonough has shown for this, and that the city has shown. This project has been in some form of conceptual phase since 2011. Myself and former Councilwoman Gay Sprague and Dwayne Cooper, we all sat down in 2011 and kind of hammered this out. We talked with SCDOT and developed this project at GPATS. We have a significant amount of funding from the South Carolina State Infrastructure Bank. Greenville County's putting in money. So this is a $123 million project. And this effort by the jurisdictions is really just to make sure that we're not just wasting the road project and not addressing the land uses, the access management, and the opportunity that it presents to really the entire area.
So say, I love it when we work. So, county. Is that a good one question? Say that we're access. What does that look like?
The road itself is being designed as limited access. And what we want to make sure is that it stays that way. So all the intersections, except the intersection of Smith Hines Road, or was Smith Hines Road and Woodruff Road, up at just across from McAllister's Deli. Every intersection along this is going to be a double lane roundabout, similar to what you see at Verde and Parallel Parkway. The entire corridor is going to be a 4-lane road with a planted or concrete median. So there will, at the outset and the development of the project, there will be no left turns able to be made onto this corridor. You need to make a right and then go down to the next roundabout and come back the other way. So all right from the outset, it's going to be right in, right out. We are trying to keep it limited access as much as possible, either in early in the design, making sure that we're working with SCDOT in limiting existing access points or removing or excessive access points, but also developing the policies and the procedures on the part of the jurisdictions so that we're setting the precedent that if you are fronting on this corridor, you may not necessarily get access to this corridor. You might have access to Woodruff Industrial or to Green Heron, so that your access to the corridor will be from a roundabout, not directly onto the corridor, which is where we see a lot of the congestion on Woodruff Road itself. Yes. So we won't be 100% successful. There are businesses that only have one option, and we'll be working with them in the future if the area redevelops. There's a lot of major developments that can come in, a lot of minor businesses that are already on the existing roadways that will be coming this parallel corridor. And we're going to be working with them and in the development of this plan between the 3 jurisdictions to make sure that we're taking care of those access points.
Keith. Yes. I'm sorry, I'm slow to the game on seeing the plan for this one, but so we're picking up the existing parallel parkway at Woodruff Industrial, crossing over 85.
Yes.
And crossing over 385 to connect to Smith Hines. That's the overall route.
Yes.
How long is that? How long does that measure out to be?
It's about 3.5 miles.
Okay. Wow. How long will it take to build?
SCDOT is currently projecting construction to begin in 2026 and to be completed in 2029. So a little over 3 years.
Wow.
It's like planning like the Summer Olympics or something.
Yeah.
2011 to 2029.
Absolutely.
You call it quits when you see that thing come to fruition. Thanks for your efforts.
So we'll be working together on a unified plan for this area, and we'll be looking at more than just access. We'll be looking at land use policies, form, et cetera. And we look forward to providing you additional updates as we get started. but wanted you to be aware before the memorandum of understanding was presented to you at the April 25th meeting. Additional questions or comments? Great. Thank you for your support.
We're moving into executive session. Is that right?
To receive legal advice, covered by compliance, condemnation matter, and
Okay.
Motion to move to executive session.
Is there a motion? All in favor? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Where are we doing that? Downstairs? Ninth floor? Okay. Make sure you have your file. Thank you, Keith.
Oh, my trash, your trash.
Be out of town Thursday.